There are places that look harmless. A quiet room, a group of friends, a screen in your hand glowing just softly enough to feel like nothing at all. But it is not what a place looks like that makes it dangerous. It is what it does to your spirit when you're too tired to notice. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But what if that fate isn't carved by your choices, but by the places you continue to stand in, even when something inside you begs you to leave? Some places don't wound you all at once. They wear you down like water smoothing stone. You don't bleed there, you vanish. And if you're not careful, you will confuse that vanishing with peace. The first place is so quiet, it echoes with your own voice. It is not a room, not exactly. It's wherever you are surrounded by sameness, where no one challenges your thinking, where your worldview becomes a mirror that shows only what you already believe. Jung warned us of collective thinking, of the danger in exchanging reflection for repetition. In this echo chamber, you stop hearing yourself, because everything sounds like you, but none of it is you. You scroll through familiar ideas. You talk to people who nod the way you do. You live inside a comfort that becomes a cage lined with words that never ask you to grow. In that place, curiosity dies. And when curiosity dies, so does courage. The second place wears the scent of ambition, but leaves you starving. The arena of comparison. Here, the walls are made of silent glances. Measuring tapes not for the body, but for the soul. You don't live, you perform. You don't become, you chase. You're not competing with others, you're competing with illusions. Lifestyles curated, timelines doctored, success performed like theater. And so, your victories taste bitter. Your joy is borrowed, your truth is edited. Jung taught the sacred process of individuation, of becoming wholly yourself. But how do you become when you are too busy being someone else? And the tragedy? You do not even know you're doing it. You think you're living, but you're imitating. You think you're progressing, but you're drifting. The third place is lined with masks. Not costumes, not lies, just subtle performances. The smile that hides discomfort. The silence that protects harmony. A laughter that doesn't reach your chest. You enter the masked circle, and you learn to survive by pretending. Pretending to agree, pretending to belong, pretending to be okay. Jung called it the persona, the face we wear to be accepted. It is not evil, but it is hollow. The danger is not wearing the mask. The danger is forgetting you put one on. Have you ever walked away from a room and felt, not drained, but displaced? As though you left your real self behind to fit in? That is the toll. Because to be loved only in disguise is to be alone in plain sight. Now imagine a place where there are no masks, no noise, no judgment, and still, you are not seen. The silent home. Where the air is heavy with things unsaid. This is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of suppression. A place where I love you is replaced with obligation. Where emotion feels like interruption. Where your pain is invisible, not because it's healed, but because no one dares name it. Jung said that the emotional patterns of childhood shape the foundation of the psyche. So when you grow up in silence, you learn not to speak, even to yourself. Your wounds become whispers, your needs become shame. You adapt until adapting becomes your identity. And healing feels like betrayal, because to heal, you must first admit you were hurt. The fifth place shouts so loudly it drowns your soul, the chaotic space. It's not just busy, it's overfilled with noise, with tasks, with distractions that feel like meaning. Here, the goal isn't growth, it's avoidance. Of pain, of thought, of yourself. You fill every hour, every second. Because silence feels like failure. Because when it gets quiet, something inside you might finally speak. And that voice, you're not ready to hear it. But Jung reminds us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The world will always offer noise. But awakening requires stillness. And stillness requires courage. Because sometimes, the silence is not empty. It is full of truths you've spent a lifetime avoiding. Then there's a place you didn't walk into. You built it, brick by silent brick. The place of self-abandonment. It happens so slowly. A small compromise, a swallowed truth. A moment you said yes when your body begged you to say no. You stop checking in with yourself. You stop trusting the ache inside. You call it maturity, responsibility, adulthood. But it is not growth if it costs your soul. Jung taught that the shadow, all you repress, all you reject, doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits in the dark corridors of your psyche, haunting your choices, corrupting your peace. To abandon yourself is not to disappear. It is to live half alive. To exist only in the reflection of what others need you to be. And finally, there is the place behind the door you swore you'd never open. The forbidden room, where your memories live uninvited, where shame curls in corners, where pain breathes under the floorboards. You told yourself you moved on, but that room never moved. It waits. Jung said, what you resist persists. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your missing part, not to be feared, but faced. To enter the forbidden room is not to collapse. It is to come home, to find the child still waiting, the anger still shouting, the fear still weeping, and to say, finally, I see you. I stayed away, but I'm here now, because true strength is not found in perfection. It is found in return, to the self you left behind, to the voice you silenced, to the feeling you buried. You don't need to be fearless. You only need to be willing. Willing to step out of the echo chamber, willing to leave the arena, willing to take off the mask, to speak in the silent home, to pause in the chaos, to listen to yourself, to enter the room, and in doing so, you remember. You are not broken. You are simply waiting to be reclaimed. The moment you begin to reclaim yourself, the world doesn't get quieter, but you do. The need to please begins to dissolve. The urgency to prove fades like steam. The mask slips, and for the first time, you can breathe in your own skin. Not because everything is fixed, not because the pain disappears, but because you are no longer trying to outrun it. You are facing it, and that is the beginning of peace. Carl Jung didn't tell us to escape these places. He asked us to recognize them, to name them, to see the unconscious not as a curse, but as a compass. You were never meant to be mentally strong by becoming harder. You were meant to become whole. Wholeness is not the absence of shadow, it is the embrace of it. That's where your strength lives, not in the walls you've built, but in the doors you dare to open. So now, quiet your mind, look around, not with fear, but with presence. What place are you standing in right now? Is it the echo chamber that flatters your certainty? The arena that tells you to run faster in shoes that don't fit? The masked circle where you shrink to be seen? The silent home where no one speaks and yet everything hurts? The chaos that blinds you with motion? The slow fade of self-abandonment? Or the room you swore you'd never enter again? Maybe it's more than one. Maybe you've been moving between them for years, calling it normal. But what if the most dangerous place isn't any of those? What if it's the one where you stop noticing you're in danger? Comfort can numb you deeper than pain, and there is no freedom in a life you no longer question. Jung believed that the soul doesn't just seek happiness, it seeks meaning. And meaning is born through encounter, with truth, with shadow, with the dark rooms inside you that still whisper your name. You don't have to burn the whole house down. You only need to open a window. Let some light in. Let yourself see the dust that's been collecting on the parts of you you've forgotten to love. No one tells you this, but awakening isn't loud. It happens like this: a pause, a question, a quiet refusal to keep pretending. You don't need to change everything. You only need to stop walking past the mirror. Stop avoiding your own eyes. Because those eyes, they still remember. They still remember who you were before the mask, before the arena, before you chose silence just to keep the peace. Before you let go of yourself to hold on to others. And they are asking you to come back. That's all. Come back. to the child who still lives in your ribs, to the truth you buried beneath achievements, to the fear that only ever wanted to be held, to the shame that only ever wanted to be forgiven. Not by the world, by you. Come back, not to fix, but to feel. Come back, not to explain, but to remember that you were never weak. You were adapting. You were surviving. You were protecting something sacred until it felt safe enough to rise again. And if you're hearing this now, it means something inside you is ready. Ready to rise. Ready to choose silence, not as avoidance, but as presence. Ready to step out of the echo, to lay down the mask, to turn down the volume of the world, so you can finally hear the soft, steady voice of your soul. You don't need to go anywhere to heal, but you may need to leave. To leave the patterns, the rooms, the conversations, the timelines, the versions of yourself that you outgrew, but never grieved. Because strength isn't holding on. It's knowing when something has stopped holding you. And what waits beyond that knowing is not emptiness. It's return. A return to the self that waded through the noise, the silence, the chaos, the self that knew. When you're finally willing to see where you've been standing all along, you no longer have to stay there. Sometimes we confuse the absence of pain with the presence of healing. But healing is not silent. It is full of sound. Not noise, but the soft hum of memory returning home. The creak of old emotions stepping into light. The whisper of a boundary finally spoken. The quiet weep of a wound being seen for the first time without being rushed away. And healing does not happen in one place. It happens when you no longer stay in the places that dim you. Jung never asked us to avoid suffering. He asked us to understand it, to lean in, to trace its origins like a river back to its source. And when you follow that river, not away from yourself, but deeper in, you'll find that all those places you feared, the arena, the mask, the chaos, the echo, the silence, the room, they weren't the enemy. They were invitations, each one asking, will you stay asleep or will you wake up? Not all at once, not with force, but slowly, truthfully, with tenderness. Because the self you buried was never meant to stay hidden. It was waiting. It still is. In the breath before you answer that text. In the second before you say yes again out of guilt. In the moment you almost scroll past your own discomfort. In the half second where you hear your intuition speak and almost silence it. Don't silence it this time. Pause. Feel. Name the place you're in. Is it yours? Or did someone else build it for you and tell you to call it home? You get to choose again. You always have. And if no one ever told you, let this be the first time you hear it. You are allowed to leave the room without slamming the door. You are allowed to forgive yourself without asking permission. You are allowed to feel angry, tired, hopeful, broken, and still be worthy of returning to yourself. Because this work, the work of awakening, is not loud. It's sacred. And sacred things don't need to shout. They only need to be heard. So tonight, before the day folds into dream, sit quietly. Breathe in. Ask yourself gently, what part of me did I abandon to belong? And listen. Not for an answer you can explain, but for a truth you can feel. And when you find even a piece of it, a flicker, a whisper, a memory, stay. Stay with it like you never did before. Because that piece of you is not your weakness, it's your return path. And walking it won't make you perfect, but it will make you real. And real is what you were always meant to be. There is no need to rush now. You've seen enough, felt enough, remembered enough. You don't need another lesson. You don't need another explanation. You only need a moment of stillness to let what you already know settle into your bones. Some truths are not meant to be understood. They are meant to be carried, like a candle in the dark, like a letter you never send, but read over and over again just to remind yourself that you are still here. And you are. Still here. Still breathing. Still becoming. Still unlearning the places you were told to stay in. Still unraveling the shame you wore like skin. Still choosing Not perfectly, but bravely, to return to yourself. That is what strength looks like now. Not in armor, not in certainty, but in the softness to ask again, who am I beneath the echo? Who am I without the mask? Who am I when I stop performing peace and start living it? Let the questions stay unanswered for now. Let them linger. You don't need resolution tonight. You need rest. You've already done something most people never will. You stopped. You saw the invisible. You named the place. And that name is the first key to leaving it. So sleep, not as escape, but as a sacred return. Let your shadow curl beside you without fear. Let your heart beat without armor. Let your soul speak in a voice only you can hear. The place you're searching for is not out there. It is already within you, beneath the noise, behind the shame, beyond the mask, beneath the silence. You are the room. You are the mirror. You are the door that opens. And now, you are home.